All right. Hello, folks. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. Happy to be here with you, trying to make sure that the stream is coming up on all channels. So please bear with me for a second as I'm trying to make sure everyone is going to be able to see this. It looks like it is, and everyone should be able to hear me fine. I hope you are. And if you cannot, please let me know so that I can try and adjust the sound and the volume here. I'm going to try and keep an eye on all messages that come in. I'm going to be checking on Facebook in particular. So with that said, I'm going to try and talk about something that I think is very important. It's breaking news. It's just been coming out. I am getting messages here. I see John Rasusha says, great to see you, Michael. Hey, John, it's good to see you too. And as you may have seen from the news, from the title of this, which I was just showing a second ago, and that is that there's a city councilman who's under another ethics violation. And to be very direct and just get right to the point, that happens to be none other than Mr. Dan Livingston. Now, a lot of people may be familiar with Councilman Dan Livingston out of Binghamton. He handles the 2nd District of Binghamton, the legislative city council district. And Dan Livingston is no stranger to this channel. A lot of people may be somewhat familiar. We've been talking about him for quite some time now. In fact, if you just take a look back, you'll see we were doing articles on Dan. That was back in, that was November of 2018. April of 2018. We had first started speaking about Dan Livingston and what he has done or not done, the violations, and I do mean the many, many violations that he has committed, ethics violations that have been reported to the district, the AG, Attorney General of New York, over the space of this entire year. 2018, he was running as a candidate for the 2nd District, and he ran on a title of, he's going to be transparent. He's going to make a change. He was being the progressive that people tend to think of progressive more along the lines of something like this. Yeah, you may remember this. This is Columbus Day in Binghamton, New York. And these are progressives. These are progressives who are intimidating the public, that are out there and attacking, or you may say a microaggression against children in Binghamton, New York, as they forced their will on people by disrupting the Columbus Day parade. And they went about this because they didn't care. They wanted to get their message out. They wanted to protest, not only protest, because it really isn't. What they were doing was disturbing the peace. They were breaking the law. They were stopping others from enjoying their freedom and their First Amendment rights by imposing their will on others. This is what you see when you see progressives in action. And this is what we see with Dan Livingston very much. Dan Livingston has been someone who's a progressive, not a Democrat, and has gone out there and he has used the goodwill of Democrats to be able to get his own agenda. And he started off very early on this. Once he won the election, which was back in, even in July of 2018, we were talking about and going over his history, because one of the big things that we like to do on this channel is to try and keep politicians honest, to go over what is their actual record. What do they really want to do for the public, and what the public should be aware of, what voters should be aware of. And what we've seen here with Dan Livingston is consistently an individual who has denied everything about his record. Back in July of 2018, he was unwilling to tell voters that he had broke the law, that he went out there and actively broke the law on Spectrum News. And I'm getting a lot of messages right now. And he didn't want to tell anyone about that. Well, it didn't end there. I wish it did, because after the election, November 28th, we were reporting how he had already gone out and decided to usurp the power of the city council of Binghamton and make it his own tool, his own puppeteer show, assuming power that he did not have, misleading the public, and trying to, unknown what his agenda truly was. But we were talking all about that, how he was out there doing whatever he thought he could because he thought the election gave him a mandate to break the law. We've been very much following him and very upset about this. And then we saw that Councilman Livingston in January, the first day that he was in office, went about to secretly spy on the men and women that were elected officials surrounding him without their knowledge, nearly illegally taping, actually in part illegally taping their conversations for a purpose no one knows about, creating mediums to be able to distribute that information that no one knew about. This is the progressive agenda. They'll do anything they want to do, and you don't dare talk to them. You don't dare stop them. Except I do, and we should, and voters should be very aware of it. Now, I'm leading this up because I want voters to understand, how are we getting to this point? Why is Dan Livingston again under investigation? Why has the Attorney General of New York been told about what Dan Livingston has just done? Because this is important. In an election, we need to know what's really going on with our candidates. And I've been talking to people about what they can do against dangerous laws, bad politicians. It's something we've constantly discussed on this program. And we need to talk about it again, because Dan Livingston has really gone out of his way this time to, disrespect the public, to disrespect his constituents, and is now actively going around misleading them, lying to the public. And I can prove that. So what did this all happen? Very simply, Dan Livingston went about, Mr. Transparency himself, decided to not be transparent. He got an intern from Binghamton University by misleading the Binghamton University staff, getting that intern on the pretense that they would be working with city council. He then used that intern to promote his political agenda, both for the Progressive Party, progressive members of the Democratic Party, as well as promoting his own personal re-election campaign. Now, these are ethics violations. Without question, they are ethics violations. They are wrong. He is not being transparent at all. He told no one in the city council. He notified no one in the legal department for the city of Binghamton. He didn't tell anyone at Binghamton University. Apparently, only he and his progressive student knew what was going on. And this student was getting paid by Dan Livingston's campaign and by the city of Binghamton. Your taxpayer dollars at work. Now, some people may say, well, that's not a big deal, but it is, especially for a candidate who says he wants to be transparent and wants to make the government transparent. He failed in his transparency. And it is a violation of ethics, at least, if not law, to have an active, paid campaign person in the government. Now, we have a couple of people who may be calling in, and of course, we always enjoy that. So let's see. Hello.
Hello?
Hi. Who's this?
John Restuccio?
Hey, John. It's good to
Hey,
have
Michael.
you on. And we
Hey,
love having...
Michael, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I love to have people calling in, so it's good. John,
Well,
go ahead.
Michael, I think you brought up I know this, you've been following the story for a while now. I just have the question, and I think this needs to be questioned. Did the college progressives on campus know about this?
I'm not sure, because no one's, at this moment, it's not clear to all the reporting, all the information I can gather about this. And I'm going to go into the news release that was just out and the news story that is just broken on this, which is inaccurate, and I will prove there is a lie in it. But it's unclear whether the Binghamton University progressives were behind this. We don't know if the student has not been named. No one has asked that student to be named. But all we know is that, and we don't know their political belief. But it's an understanding that she worked for his campaign, Dan Livingston's campaign, and he is a progressive. And this was to promote the progressive agenda, both in his campaign and in his politics. So these are facts, and I'm about to show them. We know this has happened by Dan Livingston's admission alone, something that he will not tell his constituents. And I find it very interesting, by the way, and people need to see this because Dan Livingston is being very, very deceptive. He's busy trying to tell constituents that they need to start voting as of Saturday. What he won't tell them is what happened on Monday. He won't tell the constituents that he came under investigation on Monday. He won't tell his constituents that he voted for himself to be investigated by an outside counsel to have a legal investigation on his ethics, and that the New York Attorney General was notified of his violations again. He won't tell his voters that. He won't tell his constituents that. And that's sad because he is telling them to vote early so that when this news comes out, and as people are learning that he is violating ethics at the least, that he is misleading them about transparency, that they will have already made their vote and can't change it. This is one of the problems about New York State's early voting. As people learn about the truth, they can no longer change their vote because they've already sent it in. So if you're going to send out a vote on October 26th, please keep in mind Dan Livingston is not telling you why he's under investigation. He isn't even telling his constituents that he is under investigation.
And you know what? I agree. And I think, I think college progressives should be looked at, and anyone who worked on campus with Dan Livingston in the past should be investigated, because if they knew about this, they knew it was a crime. That's unacceptable.
I think it is highly unacceptable. I think this is one of the most incredulous things we've seen in a long time. And it's something that I have seen and knew was coming because I've been following him. And when I've been following Dan Livingston, the city councilman for the 2nd District, we have seen a continuous pattern of violations of ethics, of him assuming power, of believing that the rules don't apply to him. And in every single instance, his only answer is, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Oh, I didn't know that wasn't a law. Well, in this case, he can't say that because he was informed, and this is factual, and I will show the evidence of this, that he did, in fact, know he broke the law. He did, in fact, know that, that he broke the ethics violation and that he was acting in a manner unbecoming of an elected official. He was very much aware and chose not to follow the rules and regulations because he didn't care, because he's a progressive elected official, in my belief. I don't know what his personal reasoning is because I don't know his mind. And he won't talk to us. He won't tell us. He's just very upset that anyone even says that he's accountable as an elected official because, he's the king of transparency, would seem.
Apparently, yes. And you know what? Even if he didn't know this was not illegal, let's hypothetically say that not knowing the law is not a legal defense. And how come in the past, oh, I didn't know, why didn't he ask someone then? How hard is it to go, is this allowed? If you have a question about it, ask.
Actually,
it's ridiculous. This is not an excuse.
He did ask someone. He did get an answer. He did know that he couldn't do this the way he did it. He did know that this was an ethics violation. He did know this. He was told by legal counsel that he couldn't do what he did, and which is why he was presented, why this investigation is being presented to the New York Attorney General. Now, let me explain how I can say that, John, and stay on the line. I want you to stay on. Tell me if it makes sense. By the way, has the background and understanding who Dan Livingston is, does that make sense? Everything I started off with explaining why we've been watching this politician consistently since his election and actually before then. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does.
And I think it's important for voters. Tell me, this is your opinion. Is it important for voters to know these things?
This is more than important for voters. This is a crime being committed with tax dollars, potentially. I mean, it's terrible. And every voter should know this if they're going into that ballot box in Dan's district.
Okay. Now, let me explain something. And folks, I know we don't have a picture of John up at this moment. This is John Rastusha. I'm going to try and get that up while we're talking. But I also want to try and get a little bit of background here for folks. When I say that Dan Livingston, the councilman, is lying, let me refer to the article that just came out on Press Connects, which is part of the Press and Sun Bulletin. John, have you seen this yet?
I have not seen this yet, no.
Okay, this came out at 3:30 today, approximately an hour ago. And in that, It starts off very simply that an internship held by a graduate student at Binghamton University's Masters of Public Affairs program, facilitated by Binghamton City Council member Dan Livingston, has sparked ethical questions from the City Council. That's not entirely true, but we'll go further. Now, Mr. Livingston says that he was given permission. In the article, he goes, his comment is, first of all, I did nothing wrong here, which is untrue. If the alleged issue is that I had an intern, nothing in state or city law prohibits me from working with an intern. That's not entirely true. If the alleged issue is that my intern canvassed for my campaign, which is in part true, there's nothing in state or city law that I'm aware of that prohibited her from doing that, except she was doing it at the same time that she was working for city council, and more specifically, only for Mr. Livingston, as he misrepresented things to the Binghamton University Masters of Public Affairs department. So he's lying to people. And how can I prove that? How can I say that? Watch this and tell me, John, if this proof makes it to you. This is from Dan Livingston himself. This is a recording that Dan Livingston made of the Binghamton City Council work session on October 21st. Link will be provided on YouTube so people can check this out for themselves, along with this entire video. And in there, I'm at minute 5 and 51 seconds. 5 minutes, 51 seconds. This is the conversation that was going on.
Campaign work for you? Not on the internship, no. The internship was just this
While she was
research.
in the internship, though?
Say that again?
Was it while she was in the internship?
What's that?
During the time?
During the time that she was an intern, that she doing work for you,
Yes.
pertaining to your campaign.
Yes, but the two were separate. That was something.
How do you
She's still
separate
your
those?
intern.
How do you separate?
I talked with the internship
Okay,
coordinator.
but if she's a
Hold on a
city.
second. I talked with the internship coordinator at SUNY Binghamton about it. They have policies, and I followed those policies.
Personally, I've got some concerns over this. I mean, you always talk about transparency, and here you did something this whole beginning of summer, before summer, with no knowledge of, for us, no knowledge that you went in and got a intern for Binghamton City Council.
Okay, so that's the first part. And I want to make sure that everyone understands what was just said there. They asked the question that came from City Council, every other member. None of them were aware of what was going on here. None of them knew that Dan Livingston had done this until it was found out through an investigation, and the legal counsel of the city of Binghamton was made aware of this after the fact, that he had already done this. The question is, did this intern work for Dan Livingston on his campaign as a paid staffer at the same time that they were working for Dan Livingston in city council, which is a violation. It's a conflict of interest. It's ethically wrong, as well as a misappropriation of the taxpayer dollars for this, because he paid her for his campaign and he had taxpayer dollars pay for this intern from Binghamton University. I'm not blaming the student. I'm blaming the city councilman who made this happen, who did this. I think that's a fair accusation, and I believe that's a fair statement that Mr. Livingston, who is saying that this is a political hit job, who is saying that he did nothing wrong, has just admitted on video from a live event that he in fact did do this, that he was aware that he did something wrong, and that it was not appropriate. Am I right about that, or am I wrong about that, John?
You're absolutely right, Michael. You're absolutely right. And people should be calling him out for this. He can't get away from this. He's on camera. This is supposedly Mr. Transparency, Mr. Here's what I'm doing. And he's completely going back against his voters. It's disgraceful. And I hope they find him guilty
Well, John,
of this crime.
Hold on one second, because it gets even more clear for voters and more clear for residents in Binghamton University. And this is the kind of actions by government officials we cannot allow. At the local level, at the state level, federal level, this is a problem with our government. And if we allow it to just pass by with the assumption that, well, it's not that bad, it only gets worse. That was the answer in November with Mr. Livingston. That was the answer in last July with Mr. Livingston. That was the answer in January. And he continues to only make more bigger violations of ethics and possibly law as well. Let me go to this portion.
I mean, I'm not happy with what's going on here. I mean, what's your evaluation?
This is
It
Ken,
has to be reviewed.
the legal counsel for the City of Binghamton.
And Dan, when you came and I talked to Sharon, I talked to Leanna, they specifically said, you want to do this, talk to city council, set it up, get a protocol, do all these things. And so I'm not sure when you're saying, I didn't know there was procedure, so I just went ahead and do it. You were good enough to ask the questions in advance. And to be honest, when I wrote to her and said, because I didn't know whose intern she was, what I assumed would happen is that whoever had retained her would come up and say, oh, that's my intern, this is what happened, and instead, through Stonewall. I really expected whoever's intern it was would stand up and say, this is what we did, this is the project that the intern's doing, I'd be happy to share the results, whatever it may be. But instead, there was silence, and that's what created the issue. That's how it snowballed. So, I think at this junction, I've looked at the work that was done, and, it's 34 hours out of 300 that were spent doing what's in the MOU. That's a problem. There's nothing about joint sewage in the MOU. We spent 32 hours doing joint sewage.
That's a big concern.
Wait, they spent 32 hours doing joint.
Based on the timesheets that you provided to us, 32 of those hours are related to joint sewage in some way,
Okay.
including one date where she lists what her activity is, plan of attack.
You can find that in conflict.
That's not nonpartisan work.
Plan of attack.
That's conflict of interest right there.
You know what?
Okay, so just so people understand, that was Ken, the legal counsel for the City of Binghamton. Okay, that's who this was. And he was saying very clearly there that initially Dan Livingston, the city councilman, came to the legal counsel and said, I want to get an intern. And they said, okay, there is a process. You have to make the rest of city council aware of this. There has to be a written document. There has to be approval of this. And once that is done, you can get that. And Dan Livingston said, apparently, in his mind, he was more important than city council. He was more important than the law, the rules, and regulations. And he just lied to Binghamton University and did it. He then went on to use this intern, who was supposed to do 1,000 hours of work and only did, 300 hours of work for $1,000, and in fact only did 10% of that. Of that 10%, 32 out of 34 hours were used for the political objective of Mr. Livingston and the progressives in the Democratic Party. That is an abuse of power. That is wrong. That person was also getting paid by Mr. Livingston's re-election campaign, and he knew this. That is also wrong. That's an ethical violation and a misuse of public taxpayer dollars. And then he goes on to that when it was brought up and the legal counsel was asking who was doing this, Mr. Livingston said nothing. He ducked. He hid from people. He was hiding from constituents. He was hiding from his colleagues on the city council. He was hiding from the law. That's not transparent. Is this the way of the progressives? Is this what voters really want? Someone who wants to blame everyone else for not being transparent and not being transparent themselves, to be duplicitous, to use others and to use an idea that suddenly, that he's supposed to be some kind of savior, some kind of champion for the public. And when no one's looking, he's actually out there doing exactly what he's blaming others or accusing others of doing. and he's doing it worse than anyone he's pointing at and blaming. That's a problem, I think, for everyone who wants to vote and every single resident in Binghamton in the city council. If he is the example and the rest of the progressives that are looking to run for the Binghamton City Council and want to become members, they're going to look to his leadership as a member of the city council right now. And they're going to say, well, if he can get away with breaking the law, why can't I? That's the problem when we have politicians who are not held accountable for when they violate, excuse me, I'm very excited right now, folks. When they violate the law, when they go around breaking ethical standards, when they decide that they are more important than the law or the people that they are subject to. I mean, am I wrong? John, you're on the line. Still tell me, am I wrong?
Nope, you're absolutely right. And like I said, more questions need to be answered. Like I said, who at Binghamton University knew about this other than the student? Did college progressives know about this? Did college Democrats know about this? Who else knew? Because that's knowledge of a crime, and they did not go step forward and say, this is wrong.
Well, I won't go into the video even more, but if you can see in the background, you can see this is Jared Cram right here. He is the deputy mayor of Binghamton. And he then went on to, in the video, it's the first 15 minutes of the video. Please look it up. The YouTube is there. This is Dan Livingston's video. It is not edited in any manner. I'm just not playing 15 minutes straight of it. So you can see it for yourself, anyone who wishes to, and see the violations and what he has admitted to himself. But Jared Cram was there at the meeting on Monday to highlight that the impact, the result of what Dan Livingston has done is that the Binghamton University has denied students the ability to have internships, to be involved with city government, and to learn about civic engagement because of his actions, because Dan Livingston lied to Binghamton University, because he has misused them, and he has put at jeopardy Binghamton University, the students, and the city of Binghamton, and misused public funds that because of that, the city of the Binghamton University will not allow interns to work with the city of Binghamton. That is a problem. That is denying them their liberties, their freedom, and their opportunity to learn and grow. And it hurts the public because maybe that's the next great presidential candidate. Maybe it's going to be our next senator. Maybe it's going to be our next congressperson. You know what? He has done a disservice on so many levels and damaged the relationships and the business and operation of the city and the university on multiple levels. This needs to be accountable. Can you see where the problems are here?
Absolutely. I absolutely do. And it needs to be, and thank God people like you out there are out there, Michael, talking about this issue. And because it seems like no one else really is. And it hurts not only, I mean, it doesn't only hurt his reputation, but it hurts Binghamton University students who do want to learn about civic engagement. Like you said, these are potential leaders. As you said, you were absolutely right. So it's his consequences to his actions. I mean, they not only affect himself, but others as well. And that's the big disappointing part.
Well, if you're looking at his consequences, his answer is that he's not responsible, that he doesn't know there's anything wrong here. Even though he knows there's something wrong, he admitted it. I just played that, where he's very clearly saying that he did in fact do this. And his answer is also a very old tactic amongst many progressives. We saw that at Columbus Park with those very same members of Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, where they went about and said, oh, how dare you arrest us for breaking the law? How evil you must be for stopping us from infringing on the rights of other individuals. This motivation to violate the freedoms of others, to violate laws, I believe comes part and parcel from individuals like Dan Livingston when they see him flaunting the law and doing whatever he wants because he believes he's an elected official, so he can do anything and rules don't apply to him. That is a mantra that I see very often from progressives. I don't see any of the Republicans doing that. I don't see the Libertarian doing that. I don't see anyone but the progressives doing that. Even other Democrats don't do that. So this is a problem. Where do we get Plot from? We get it from people like Dan Livingston, violating law, violating ethics, harming Binghamton University, a critical economic partner to Binghamton's the government, and the city of Binghamton being damaged by this. Yeah, this is very far-reaching. And he's not willing to even take take the opportunity to admit what he has already admitted on the 21st when he voted to have an investigation of himself. It was a unanimous vote to have an outside legal counsel investigate the ethics violations and possible other crimes of Dan Livingston himself. He voted for his own investigation. And he is now trying to say, well, no. And he goes and speaks to the press and Sun, who did not look at this video, apparently, and did not tell the public that this video exists so that they could see this for themselves and hear Dan Livingston himself contradict what he told them in their story. And what Mr. Livingston does is he goes on to say that, no, you know what? The real story is that the student is being threatened. No, she is not. And if you go back to the video, and I know I'm talking a lot here, and I'll let you speak in a second, John. But in the video that Dan Livingston himself recorded, in the first 15 minutes, he in fact stumbles around trying to find a claim and to say that there is a student is being threatened, except the student didn't say that. Binghamton University didn't say that. That was Dan Livingston's interpretation of a communication he received because he needed something to change the subject. He wanted to say that this person's being threatened, except no one has threatened them. There is no one that was identified. And the thing that was threatening is that the legal counsel decided to ask Binghamton University who authorized all this. And the answer is Dan Livingston. But that was threatening because someone decided to find out what rules and violations and what potential laws he broke. That's funny in a way. That how dare you, this is Dan Livingston essentially saying that how dare you investigate me abusing my power, misusing government funds, denying the public the opportunity to know the truth. How dare you do that? You know what? That's a microaggression against me and the student. And even though no one else has said they are upset by this or that they are threatened, he is going to tell them, which is mansplaining, I believe the liberals like to say, is mansplaining for this student and saying that she must feel threatened because he doesn't like the answer. I don't know. Maybe I'm very excited about this because it's very aggravating. This is our government crumbling around us. This is a politician abusing his power and laughing at the public because of his abuse of power, his violations of ethics, and thinking that the rules don't apply to him and that he could say anything he wants to his friends in the media and they will cover it up for him, which I do not agree with. But John, you tell me. I mean, you called in. I'm still looking, by the way, folks, I'm watching Facebook, I'm watching Twitter. I'm watching for the commentary here. If you think I'm wrong, if you think I've misunderstood something, if you see the facts that I am presenting right now and you think I've got it wrong, please let me know. I'm watching this, and John, I want to hear what you think. Have I got it wrong? Am I not getting this?
I guess my final thoughts on the matter before I leave here are going to be, it's sad that someone thinks that they can be above the law and they can change the conversation to something that we have no proof of. Like you said, the student hasn't come out and said that. School hasn't. Dan Livingston only has said that. And it's sad that the progressives think they're above the law. Every single time, like you said with Columbus Day, they thought they were above the law and shouldn't be arrested for disturbing the peace, scaring children, wearing masks. They have a right to free speech, absolutely, but there's a time and a place for it, and there was not the place. Dan Livingston is a perfect example of that progressive motto of I'm above the law, and it's about time someone like you absolutely goes after him. We need more people like you in the media, Michael.
Oh, well, I hope so. And I hope the other members of the media, because so far I've only noticed the only one I've seen mentioning this, and it's still breaking news, so they're probably the other news media in the region are probably doing their homework right now, and hopefully they're watching this program as well to see the research that I have done on this for over a year in following the ethics violations of Mr. Dan Livingston before and after he became city councilman. And the fact that this is going, and the reason why this is going to the Attorney General of New York, and that there is an outside counsel to make sure of whether or not the violations that Mr. Livingston has already agreed to and said that he did in fact do, how to punish him for that. But I think voters are the ultimate punishment. And I hope that people are not going to go out there and just make early votes and not realize and not regret that they find out about the truth and the facts here afterwards. I hope the rest of the media are out there, that they're going to do their homework and they're going to see the same things I am seeing and I am presenting to the public right now, because they didn't want to talk about it in November. They didn't want to talk about it in January. And that led us to where we are today, in my belief, that we are here today watching Mr. Livingston continue to violate laws, misuse public funds, and to totally deceive the public. That is my feeling on it. And I'm very, and that upsets me. I don't care if it was Republican, Democrat, conservative, that upsets me. And the fact that it's a progressive doesn't make it any better or worse, but it does show me a trend, you know?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show, Michael, allowing me to call in.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing text. I am asking, again, thank you, John. And I am waiting to see other people. I want to hear everyone. I understand this is my point of view. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you don't think it's something to be excited about. I feel it's very excitable when I am watching someone manipulate the public, when I am watching someone manipulate voters, trying to get them to vote early, starting October 26th, to get in their early votes so that when they find out the truth, when they find out the violations of law that have been committed against them, it's too late. That they will have to regret this. That is deceptive. That is sneaky. Because he's violating ethics willy-nilly, thinking that he is able to do this without any regard. He is able to lie to the media and tell them statements that actively and directly dispute his own live comments that he himself videotaped just 2 days prior. I'm sorry. And I would love to see Mr. Livingston. I have been asking for him to come on and to answer my questions about this live and unedited with any answer he would like to provide to the public. I have given him that opportunity. He has had an open door to show up on this program at any time that he wishes to answer what I am speaking about. I have been asking him to do that for over a year. He has denied at every opportunity to answer my questions. I'm opening the door again to him. He has an open invitation to come on here live with me to answer everything I am speaking about, to tell me how he thinks I am wrong and how that what he said on Monday is somehow not true from his own words, and that how today on Wednesday he said something completely different that doesn't exist in the video record. And he can explain why he is not willing to show the transparency to his constituents on his Facebook page, on his social media, and to distribute and let them know that he himself voted to investigate himself for violations of ethics and abuse of power. And I would love to see the AG of New York finally take action after a chain of violations of law from the federal all the way down to the local that Mr. Livingston has violated, and to take action. I don't know. Maybe that's me. I believe that's something we should hold every politician to. Not just the Republicans, not just the conservatives, not just the libertarians. I'm talking about the progressives and the Democrats, and in particular, Mr. Dan Livingston. Yes, you should be held to the law just like everyone else should. You don't get a pass because you say you're a progressive. You don't get a pass because, well, you're saying that you believe in truth and transparency and don't live up to your own words. This is a big breaking news item. I hope and I demand out of my colleagues at the Press and Sun, yes, I'm a political commentary, a member of the press, and a minor one at that. I admit that freely, But you know what? The Press and Sun should do their job. Go and look at this video and go back and ask Dan Livingston to answer why he changed his answers to them when he has admitted that he has violated, as I understand, and looking at the video, listening to his answers, he has admitted that he has created violations of ethics, abuse of power, and misuse of public funds. I want to see them ask him this question and correct their record. And Mr. Livingston, please come on this program live, unedited, and answer these questions. Your voters deserve. You are obligated as an elected official to answer these questions to your voters and to the members of the residents of the city of Binghamton, of which I am one of. I don't know. I'm very angry about this, folks. I'm very angry about this. But I can't stay focused on this. I got to get ready because I'm going to go see the DA debate with Deborah Gelson, with Paul Battisti and Mike Korchak. I want to watch this live. It's something that is not allowed to be recorded by media or anyone present. I don't know why. So I want to be there live to be able to see what's going on in the questions and to learn about the DA race. And hopefully if I see Dan Livingston there or the other members of the progressives fringe of the Democratic Party, I will ask them to give answers on the record about this. But please share this. If you agree with me, share it. If you disagree with me, or even if you agree with me, give a comment. Let's make sure our politicians are accountable, including Mr. Dan Livingston. I thank you. I hope you're going to have a great day, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone again very, very soon.